Hello everyone, I'm Dr. Joel Meniado, a lecturer at Yanbu English Language Institute. Today I'm going to talk about the intended learning outcomes, or ILOs, of English 002 for weeks 5 and 6. English 002 has three components: the General English, Technical English or Workplace English, and Grammar and Vocabulary. For General English, you should be able to predict what a person is trying to say, give and ask for recommendations in a particular situation, identify supporting details in a text, and write a comparative paragraph using appropriate signal words. For Technical English, you should be able to compare different features of two products orally and write a short paragraph or short product recommendation report based on comparative features. For Workplace English, you should be able to describe and compare job benefits in different companies and use expressions to delegate works and to discuss progress on a project. For Vocabulary and Grammar, you should be able to get yourselves familiarized with high-frequency vocabulary for both General English and Technical English. You should also be able to produce meaningful sentences using prefixes and identify the synonyms and antonyms of some words. For grammar, you should be able to write meaningful sentences with verbs agreeing with their subjects in terms of number, and write sentences using comparative and superlative degrees of adjectives. Lastly, you should be able to give recommendations or suggestions using modals like can or could, shall or should, have to, must, and their negative and question forms. Now let's begin with listening, predicting what is the person is trying to say. Now, how can you predict what is the speaker going to say? First, find out about the topic. Second, ask yourself, what do I know about this topic? And make some connections between what you know and what the speaker is talking about. For speaking, you should be able to give and ask for recommendation. When you give advice or recommendation, you can use expressions like, what should I do? What should we do? Or where should we go? For example, it's hard to get to class on time. What should I do? Then when you give recommendation or suggestion, you'd say, I think you should make waking up early a daily routine. Now, other ways of giving advice or recommendations are, you say, I don't think you should, don't you think you should, or maybe you shouldn't. In reading, you should be able to know how to identify supporting details. Now, supporting details can be in the form of fact or something you know is true. It could also be reason or the cause of something. Or examples, like something that shows what something is like. Now, you can see the example, bowing is a form of a greeting in many countries. And you can see there are samples of details according to fact, reason, or example. Okay? Now, for writing, you should be able to develop a comparative paragraph. Now, what is a comparative paragraph? It is a kind of paragraph that describes or explains the similarities and or differences between two or more people, places, things, or ideas. Now, how to develop or how to write a comparative paragraph? First, choose two related topics. Okay, make sure you choose two related topics, as it's difficult to establish the connection or the relationship between the two if they're not connected. Second, organize ideas using graphic organizers like Venn diagram or T-chart, where you can group the similarities and the differences between the two. Write your topic sentence. Include the two subjects that you choose. Follow your topic sentence with supporting details and group your details in some ways that make sense. 5. Use clue words such as similar to, both, also, to, as well, on the other hand, however, but, in contrast to, differs from, while, and unlike. Now, in technical English, we should be able to compare two products in terms of features or companies in terms of benefits. Now, when you compare two products or companies, you should use the word than. For example, Galaxy Note 9 is cheaper than iPhone XS Max. Toyota Camry is less expensive than Ford Taurus. Or say, Saudi Aramco is better than Schlumberger in terms of employee benefits. Now, to form comparative forms of adjectives, use the following general rules. For one-syllable adjective, you add ER or you add R if the word already ends in E. For example, long, longer, wide, wider. For two-syllable adjectives, use either more or R or ER. For example, modern, two sounds or two syllables. So you say more modern. Easy, so you say easier. For adjectives with three syllables or three sounds, use more or less. For example, complicated. So you have four sounds, so you have to use more. So more complicated. There are irregular comparatives such as better for the adjective good, worse for adjective bad, farther for adjective far. Now, to express a problem between two objects, use for. For example, the truck is too heavy for the bridge. Now, you have your example of a paragraph comparing two products. Those two products are iPhone XS Max and Samsung Galaxy Note 9. You would notice that in the topic sentence, I mentioned these two products and a brief description between the two, or description of the two. And then, in the body, I tried to establish the similarities and differences of the two gadgets in terms of power, quality of the camera and the screen, and then the battery life, and then the storage capacity. And then, at the end, in the conclusion part, I tried to make a recommendation which phone is better than the other. Okay? Now, you see here a list of high-frequency words for the vocabulary. You met these words in listening 1 and 2, as well as in reading 1 and reading 2. And you have also vocabulary for workplace English, such as healthcare, health benefit, salary, membership, bonus, childcare, leave, pension, holiday, subsidy or subsidize, and then days off or months off. Now let's move on to prefixes. Prefixes are a group of letters attached at the beginning of a word, and each prefix has its own meaning. So if you know the meaning of the prefix and you know the meaning of the root word, then most likely you will know the meaning of the new word. For example, we have here commonly used prefixes, which means not. We have here im, un, il, ir, in, and none. So if you know the meanings of these prefixes, which is not, then say, for example, in impossible, you say im, which means not, so you say impossible means not possible. Unrealistic, meaning not realistic. Okay? So now let's move on to synonym and antonym. Synonyms are words that have similar or almost similar in meaning, while antonyms are words that are opposite in meaning. Now, examples of synonyms here, we have courteous, similar meaning with that of polite, rude, impolite, scream, yell, valuable, same meaning with important, etiquette, same meaning with manners. On the other hand, we have antonyms here. Antonyms are opposite in meaning. So for example, expensive is the opposite of cheap. Modern is the opposite of traditional, and thick is the opposite of thin. And we have many other words that are opposite in meaning. For subject-verb agreement, we have a general rule that verbs must always agree with the subject of the sentence in terms of number. So as you can see in the chart here, if the subject is singular, we need a singular verb, which usually ends in S or ES. And if the subject is plural, we need a plural verb, which does not usually end in S or ES. You have their example. Like, for example, Ahmad travels to Jeddah every weekend, or Khalid and Walid travel to Medina every weekend. So you see the difference there. Also, sometimes you have verbs like is or are. We use is for singular subject and are for plural subject. Also, the verbs has or have. We use has for singular subject and have basically for plural subject. Now, for sentences with there is or there are, okay, the subject comes after the verb. Like, for example, there is a lot of information about manners. The subject here is lot, so we use the verb is. Now, some nouns, some plural nouns do not end in S, like, for example, women, children, teeth, okay? But still they need plural verb. For example, children learn manners from their parents. Now, let's move on to comparatives and superlatives. We use the comparative degree of the adjective when we are comparing two persons, places, or things, and the superlative when we are comparing three or more persons, places, or things. Now, the same rule applies in forming comparative degree and superlative degree, just like what I told you before. For one syllable adjective, we use ER. We add ER at the end of the adjective. And for the superlative form, we use EST. For two syllable adjective, we use either ER or more or less. And then for superlative, we use EST or most or least. And then for three syllable adjective or more, we use more or least. Okay, examples are given there already. Now, lastly, we have modals. There are commonly used modals, okay, we use when we give suggestions or recommendations. And some of these are can, could, should, must, and have to. For example, we use can to express ability, permission, or possibility. And we use could to express ability in the past, polite permission, possibility, request, or when we offer ideas or possible solutions. We use should to express 50% obligation when we give advice or recommendation, or when we express logical conclusion. We use must to express strong obligation or necessity, and logical conclusion or certainty. And we use have to express the same like must, strong obligation as required by authority or law. Now, you have there different samples of sentences using these modals. Now, you have to note that when you use modals, they must be followed by verb 1 or the base form of the verb. Also, modals must and have to are almost the same. However, they have slight differences. Must, they both express obligation. However, the word must shows that obligation comes from the speaker himself because this is what he believes necessary. For have to, okay, you use this one when an obligation comes from somebody else. It's a law or a rule, and the speaker can't change it. So that's the slight difference between must and have to. Okay, so that's all, and thank you for watching.